Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to A Full Course Yellow. If you're joining us straight from Channel 31's In Pit Lane program, our final show for season 2021. Welcome to the show. This is something we do after the show every week. It's something we'll do instead of the show over the next few weeks because, as I said, it was our last one, and not a moment too soon did it end either. Been a very, very tough year sort of getting things together, but Finally, we've got local racing happening. There's local stuff happening on track here. We've got, of course, Supercars on the weekend. Formula One is continuing. Moto GP wrapped up, and we'll be talking to Doc. We spoke to Doc about that on the program, but I'm sure we'll pick up on that a little bit later on as well. Whole bunch of things to talk about. Let's introduce the people who are going to be talking about it and joining in the conversation. Once again, we've got let's have a look. There we go. We've got a boat. We've got a flying boat. I don't know why we've got a flying boat, but our special guest tonight is a flying boat. So there you go. Alongside the flying boat is Chris. We've got Doc and of course Pete down the bottom.
And a flying. There's actually a plane and a flying boat. So we're sticking with a theme there.
It is, yes. That's what we've been talking about before. It
was a motor racing plane.
Talking about
and if you have a close look at it, it's very similar to the plane that's parked behind me.
Mm. Yeah, and manufactured the same engine manufacturer.
Yeah, you were talking about it before.
Same aircraft manufacturer.
Mm.
You were talking about the fact that the Merlin engine, and you had something to do with them, Chris, with tanks as well. But I remember sort of growing up, they were very big in unlimited hydroplane racing, and at Lake Epilogue, that was the golden days of motorsport on Channel O as it was back then. You had over the summer when the VFA finished for the year, they would cross over into a summer of motorsport, and you had Calder Park, you had drag racing from Calder Park, you had hill climbs from Lakeside or Lakeland hill climb, Speedway from Redline Speedway, and you also had the power boats from Lake Epilogue and motorsport circuit racing from Phillip Island. So that was sort of your on high rotation right throughout the summer period. And I remember it was really exciting to see and hear the big unlimited hydroplanes powered by the Merlin engines, and they've been sort of superseded. If you have a look over in America, I'm not sure that we still have the big unlimited hydroplanes in Australia, but they do in America, and there's still a couple of, I think, the Merlin engine things, but mostly they're helicopter turbines now running the
gas turbines. Is the same that was used in the Iroquois.
Yes. So that's the one now.
We were saying before the show that I think the best moment of those particular Merlin, the Rolls-Royce engines, is when they start up. It's just a crazy kind of wonderful, crazy kind of one. Just when they fire up, not when they're just constantly running. When they fire them up.
The best time to listen to a Merlin engine is at a tractor pull when there's two of them lined up, heading in opposite directions. Pulling a massive trailer. And they go to maximum RPM, and then they just sit there spinning their wheels, digging a hole to China. That's the best use of the Merlin engine.
That's the other place they're using them in motorsport too. And now, hello to Dave Stillwell, who's joining us as well.
With earplugs responsibly with kids, please, and earmuffs.
Yeah, so
I would actually argue that the best place for a Merlin engine in a tractor pull is actually in the tanks that they went into, because you'd have more traction.
Yes, they do.
You spread the load and you'd have more traction. There is video online, by the way, and I will digress for 2 seconds, of a German Leopard tank being driven by the German army at a European tractor pull. It's worth finding. The thing kicks butt. But there is also footage of a traction engine from the late 1800s at a tractor pull in the US with the flames and the sparks coming out the top. That it is glorious. And it goes full pull without even trying.
This is grassroots motorsport at its finest, which is literally pulling the grass out of the dirt anywhere. So can't get much more grassroots than this, guys and girls. So
well, we've covered the tractor pull, on a number of occasions. We had it was when it was out Stewart's Way out in Melton. We covered it when it was out there, and then of course the Tooradin tractor pull we covered most recently. Our mate Hussein went out with me to the last one we covered, and all that. And he was just Hussein wasn't a big motorsport fan. I mean, he was more interested in the television side of the whole thing. He really wasn't all that interested in cars and all that. But he went to the tractor pull, and he was just after we finished filming, he was straight on the phone to his mates and saying, no, you've got to come, you have to come down here. This is you're not going to believe what I'm seeing right now. This is amazing.
I will trump you all. You cannot beat, because it won't happen. Hopefully, it may happen one day, but the Wandong Country Music Festival was the paramount of all tractor pulls. It was just a music festival's big stage. They had the tractor pull that just has not been matched since by any venue in Australia. And lastly, if Stuart could help me out here, because I don't do the graphics on this particular one, but the Recar, please, the turbine Ford Louisville that had the turbo, big, huge jet engine, and they brought another one over from America that and they had they tried to match them up. I can't remember the American ones, but they both had technical difficulties. The truck itself ended up down in Tasmania and had the jet engine taken off the back of it, and was hauling bees for a few years, honey and stuff. And there's trying to get maybe a possible restoration of that truck and put it back together, but trying to find all the parts is difficult. There it is, the beautiful old
build a Recar, but let's have a look at that one.
For the old Louisville.
Nice.
I think that's the same one.
There it is.
That looks like a model of it.
It could have been it. But they did build it, and it was in Ford blue.
So are you saying, Doc, that at the music festival this was the main attraction?
Certainly was.
It would have been the loudest thing there.
And the funny thing was, a famous country musician in Australia, I think his dad owned it for many, many years after that, and then sold it, but I just can't remember. I think it might have been the Koenigsegg.
Didn't they run that at one of the Avalon air shows? No, they ran a longer one that's white and yellow and whatever, but a different body. I think it's a Peterbilt.
They ran one at the drag night up in Darwin in the middle of the year, didn't they? For the Darwin doubleheader. Was it this year or last year?
I didn't see a truck this year.
Group A's. Yeah. Well, sorry, the
truck was called the Waltzing Matilda, and it was very, very popular. It used to race regularly out at Calder at the drags, and I forget it also used to race the Bandag Bullet, which was not a jet, but it was a turbocharged diesel there. So he used to race that occasionally. It wasn't the fastest thing in the world. If you're looking for something, anybody who knows anything about sort of jet trucks, the original and the best, if you want sort of to see an absolute ridiculous fire show, is Liz Shockley's Shockwave in the United States. I mean, just don't do it now, because if you watch now, you won't be staying with us anytime, because you can lose once you get into that YouTube funnel of that rabbit hole. Down you go, and you'll get more and more stuff with Shockwave doing all sorts of things.
So we saying
there you go. Ray Koenigsegg did buy the truck in 1981. Sorry, Still, you can go ahead now.
So are we saying that the tractor pull / jet propelled dragster rabbit hole is kind of on a par with the QAnon rabbit hole in terms of how far down and deep?
No, QAnon's got nothing on him. QAnon's got nothing on him.
And I think there might be particularly in America, I think there's probably a bit of a crossover with the audience as well. Between you and
I was just going to say this: the tone of this conversation and the images that it brings up really does feed into my campaign. I do use a hashtag on a couple of my race car posts on social media. It's race cars that shoot fire are better than race cars that don't shoot fire. So I would encourage every competitor out there that has control over their fueling for their race cars, if you're not fuel limited for the races that you're in, please, for the love of all that is pure and good in motorsport, while we still have internal combustion engines, can you turn them up to full rich on the overrun? Because all the fans that are going to start coming back trackside deserve to see flames coming out the side and out the back of every race car for as long as possible, because there's only so much oil going around, and we're only going to be allowed to use it for so much longer on racetracks. Let's make it good while we can.
And before we go back to your regular programming, to put a full stop on it so I don't leave everyone hanging to last week, the American truck they did bring over was the Tyrone Malone Super Boss.
Yeah.
They brought that over, and they did run Waltzing Matilda back in 1979 on closed public roads up in northwestern Victoria between Birchip and Wycheproof. And it did in a world land speed record format of 2 flying runs, 1 run each way, and it recorded a top speed of 220 miles per hour plus. So they couldn't actually, it went faster than they could record at the time.
At which point it's no longer a fast-moving car; it's a low-flying aeroplane without wings.
I'm on rubber. So, and last but not least, Ray Koenigan did buy it back in 1981. Without going too much about him, he did put on the front cover his Jet Set Country album in the next couple of years later. And there you go. So, boom, a bit of motoring history for you, and land speed history.
The interesting thing about the thing is, it really was just basically a truck. It was with the engine bolted onto it, so it wasn't like if you have a look at Liz Shockley's machine. I mean,
it was a Ford LNT.
Thank you, Knackers.
There you go. It was a Ford LNT 7000 Louisville. It was just a straight out Ford Louisville.
Yeah, they just it had the original engine. They didn't even take the engine out. They left the original engine in. They just disconnected the drive shaft when it was running.
Motor.
Yeah. And there you go. And yes, actually, ironically, it was closely related to exactly what you're talking about. It was an ex-RWF Rolls-Royce Avon Mark I jet engine that was slapped on the back of it.
I think it was out of from memory. I think it was out of a Canberra bomber or something.
Correct. Yep, taken from a Canberra bomber. Absolutely spot on, Brett. Correct.
I digress to some of the comments and seeing where Mad Cow lives, and noticed Virtual R's comments, and I'm thinking, you know what? I need an excuse to test my Raspberry Pi with the Video Ninja.
Oh, you do, don't you? Yes.
I absolutely do.
Melton.
We shall talk about. We shall speak of these things afterwards. I think,
yes.
Stuart, because
I might need a recharge, but I think we can sort something out.
With spectators allowed, especially with that smiley on it.
Spectators, there might be some caveats on that. I'm not sure.
Of course, you got to be double.
We'll talk about it later. But that's an interesting possibility for one day. So we might talk about that later. So thanks, Roy, for letting us know about that. That's there. Let's see who else is there. Let's have a swing around. We got Boxers with us. I just made the change over from Channel 31. Yes, last program. Thanks for that, Box. Really appreciate it. Yeah, very tough couple of years to do it, and thank you to the In-Pit Lane crew who did come in for a handful of shows. I don't know how many we eventually did do over the last sort of 18 months. It was certainly less. I think it was probably about 6 or so. Very frustrating. Very frustrating year. Tony P joining us, saying evening all. Russell is joining us as well. Russell Clark.
Yeah, I got Russell on tonight.
There you go. Yeah, so Doc's in the fan club, the Russell Clark fan club. Mad Cow Mark is saying In-Pit Lane ran over. Yeah, I'm not sure why it ran over. It was a really short show tonight. I sort of finished it and sort of had timed it and went, oh, hang on, we're about 90 seconds. We're about 90 seconds sort of shy of of the minimum that we should be. But I wasn't going to go and redo anything again to fill up that. To fill up that space. Jeff McWigan also joining us. Good to see you. As we've already seen, Paul Vanderacker is joining us once again. That's the details of Tyrone Malone versus Waltzing Matilda. That's on YouTube. So check out that. Do a search for that later.
You're right there, Chef.
Yeah, I'm glad you tried to pronounce it, Doc, because I couldn't there. But you're
I
welcome.
think
Hi, how
it's
are you?
pronounced. It's Chevy.
It's Chevy. Thank you very much, Doc. It would want to have good tyres. Yes, it certainly would. And yes, this is what we're going to talk. Yes, double as Royce and double vaccinated required. So that might be a. I'm not sure. Have you had the two yet, Stuart? Or I know you've had the first one, but
Tomorrow.
Oh well, there you go. Timing.
Tomorrow.
Timing. Okay. That's probably doable then.
And then I go shopping and I buy another K5, which is a camera.
So you better explain yourself there.
Yep. Okay, that's good. Hey, let's talk a bit about what's happening around the place. Speaking of double vaccinated, the return of David Reynolds. He's coming back. There was some talk about sort of Matt Campbell possibly jumping in and having a drive. Luke Youlden's done a fantastic job, and I suppose might put Dave under. Dave won't feel the pressure, but I imagine that there's people will be having a look and seeing how he does compared with some of those the great job that Luke did. So
there was talk about David Wall driving too.
Yeah, well, David is
big
replacing.
Thumbs up for Dave Wall.
Yeah, Dave's replacing.
Ash
Who's
Walsh.
Dave replacing? Yes, because Ash Walsh is stuck up in Queensland for some reason. Or can't get back for whatever reason. David Wall is replacing
Ash
him.
Walsh is studying to be a doctor, I think, or medicine or something along those, very similar to those lines, and has his studies up there. And if he was to come down to New South Wales, he'd still have to follow quarantine regulations to go back up to Queensland again because they haven't relaxed them up there, and therefore he would miss his exams. And they can't be done remotely or online. So that's why Ash won't be dropping down to New South Wales. I did check that out.
Okay, and just having a look at the Parwin Road. So is that the old Speedway? The old. Do you know where that is, Stuart?
I'm thinking if that is the old Speedway, then maybe I need to speak to one of the producers of a television program by the name of Formula Speedway, because last I heard he was still in charge out there.
Oh, okay, yes, because that's certainly that address there rings. But anyway, if you're out that way over the weekend, the Melton there's rally sprint
Let me fly my
happening.
drone.
Yeah, I think Cams might have something to do with Motorsport Australia might. So yeah, it is. Yes, it's virtual. Yeah, so yeah, it is. It's
Stand outside the fence.
Yeah, it is. It is the old Bacchus Marsh Speedway. So yeah, because we did the opening of that. We did the opening of that for Optus, the old Optus Vision back in the old Optus Vision days. I'll remember one of the coldest nights I've ever been to it live. But we did that live for that was national for we did that national for Optus Vision. So that was it was a big night. Myself and Tony Morrissey did the hosting out there. So so there's a few memories, and we were going to we set up for a while. The guy who owned it for a while was interested, and we were trying to come up with a weekly weekly Saturday night live speedway show on Channel 31. So they were going to, we were going to, and this is in the day before streaming. This was when it was just old-fashioned live television, and pretty. So we worked on that for a little while, but the funding unfortunately never came through, and I don't think they actually even got any meetings done because we were out there sort of, we did the logistics. Out there, myself and a couple of people from RMI TV went out and did all the logistics about where the cameras would go and where we'd be running cables and all the rest of it, and it never sort of happened. But okay, so there. So
they did pretty it up over the years. I don't know how recent that photo is, though.
There you go. There's an experienced campaigner below us.
Yeah, 20 laps.
20 laps.
Yeah, that would be a good way to celebrate your birthday. A sprint car that would be a lot of fun, awful lot of fun. Yeah, they were running the two-seater sprint car out there as well. We had one of our guests sometime either earlier this year or late last year was out there. I think Brett Milburn was involved in that out there running the sprint car out there. So that was. So that was good, but yes. So this weekend, yes, we've got Supercars. Also, what we've got happening this weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park is the first round of the revived and unfortunately truncated Tasman series. We got a couple of internationals coming in, which is interesting, including ex-Formula One driver Roberto Merri. So that's a very good get for the series, and also I think it's Katayama from the Super GTs coming in and racing as well. So that'll be fantastic. Tonight, I know they're out on the track tonight. Nick Percat is running laps there tonight in the S5000 to have a bit of a play,
have a tweak, have a bit of a spin. Yeah. Would that be his first bum in seat effort for
S5000?
Yeah. I think I recall in the last 2 years putting his rectum in the plastic seat. That's good. Yeah, I wonder how he goes. I wonder if he's got much. He loves a bit of karting, Nick, too. So you never know. He might be able to throw it around a bit and enjoy it.
I don't think he's actually racing. I think he's just going to get in there and because he was interested. I think a lot of the drivers out there are obviously really interested in getting in there. I mean, James Moffat, I think, has done some laps in the car. Obviously, Nick's doing it tonight. So I think that there's going to be probably a few drivers would like to jump in and have a bit of a steer. I know Craig Lowndes was interested in having a bit of a steer of it as well, but not actually racing, but just getting in and getting his bum into it and having a bit of fun and seeing what they're like. So keep our fingers crossed for that. It's be really good to see her.
Well, Craig Lowndes has done a lot of heavy lifting on the testing of the Gen 3 car the last few months. Yeah, so he has. So you've been getting some feedback off him. Anyway, I reckon. Forget the as I brought up to you during the week, Brett. We've got obviously the Sydney Motorsport Park SMP Super Night coming up on Saturday night for another night race. However, forget about the Will Davison SVG bloody little stoush. Bring on the Whincup SVG stoush. That is just waiting to just boil over. I reckon what must be being said behind closed doors. I reckon that those walls on that bloody damn well on that transporter would want to be soundproof at the moment. At times,
I think it would be the problem that they've got is, as was mentioned on the weekend, is the fact that Jamie's the boss. From next year, Jamie's the boss, and he's got a position now, and he sort of said, "Well, that's not going to affect anything." I would imagine that Roland would be having a bit of a word to perhaps to a quiet word to Jamie, but I can sort of understand it to an extent from Jamie's point of view, and he's saying,
"I'm on Jamie's side on this one." Yeah.
I've only got a few. But the point is, I think that it was far more likely that the Shane, if he'd have been let through, that Shane was going to catch up with, might not have beaten Will, but Will Brown, but and congratulations to him for fabulous. Really exciting the fact that you've got. Over the weekend, you've got the next generation is really sort of showing there. You've got Anton De Pasquale and also now Will Brown sort of dominating the weekend. So and Jamie's moving out, and hopefully we'll get we'll see more of those young drivers getting faster and faster and coming in and taking it to the next level. So it was a good weekend.
Well, I think Roland would have actually put a few expletives in there because, they do manufacture their own panels for that particular vehicle and the customer cars and the customers of customer cars. So they basically have exclusive rights on the rigs on providing spare parts for them. But I did hear a few people saying that Roland was on the dog and bone up in Queensland. They're not a very happy camper.
Yeah, I think this is the problem. I agree with you, Paul. I think this is the problem. This is he's the boss next year, and when he says to his drivers next year, hey Shane, move over. It's or what else or anybody? It's like, well, hey mate, you didn't. So why should I?
He's got to eat his own words. Oh, look, in principle though, I think Brett, you were right because if it was just two drivers out on the track in 2 supercars that were, one might have a slight 4 or 5 lap of tyre advantage and the other one hasn't, and if they were in opposing teams, they wouldn't give an inch. So, to a certain extent, and I thought Jamie's comment was very relevant at the time in the heat of the moment, and they played it over the comms, was, how about he work with me and we both get up to where we need to be rather than trying to just bash past me or I let him through. So I've not always been Jamie's biggest fan for different reasons over the years, but, I still respect him as a driver and as a person and his personality, but I think he was right within his right, whether it's got anything to do with being boss next year or not. I think if there's been no team orders given before the race, and it's probably unlikely they would have foreseen the circumstances that these two ended up, other than the straight out, this is what happens at the start of the season. One must, you follow team orders. As Naka said down in the graphic a minute ago, Jamie has, and not just Bathurst, he has still disobeyed team orders because, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But like the Bathurst one, we'll just briefly touch on it. If he had to save fuel, he would have got passed by 6-7 cars. Or if he didn't save fuel and he actually made it to the end, he would have been a hero, or he put out like he did. So, I thought he made the right decision at that particular time anyway, as well too.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how he goes as a boss because, he's, there's no doubt about it. He's one of the best drivers that we've ever seen in terms of the number of championships he's won in terms of the number of races. I mean, he's certainly up there in just statistically with the Brocks and the Moffats and all of those sorts of people. But I'm just wondering whether what his people skills are in terms of because he's a very determined, very professional man. The interesting thing was, from the brief interactions we've had with Jamie over the years, he reminds me a lot of Mark Scaife in that he's very focused, he's very business. And he's very straight. He's very straight shooter, and sometimes might be a bit too straight of a shooter in terms of because you got to when you're looking after a group of people and leading a group of people, you've got to inspire them, and you've got to make them want to come along with the ride with you. If you get too heavy on them and start making demands of them that they can't meet, people might decide that we're not, we can possibly go somewhere else. And what they want to do is, of course, they'd preferably want to keep Shane on board for as long as they can because he's obviously himself is a great talent, so they wouldn't want to lose him to anybody.
I think the other issue was in the first 2 races, JB let Shane through with relative ease, and then suddenly he's switched to no, I'm gonna fight for this. So.
Well, he said afterwards that he was actually he was confident that he could make it past Will, and it was and he sees himself as still being very much in contention for the championship. I mean, it's basically between him and Shane in terms of the championship with 2 rounds to go, but extra points obviously for Bathurst. So. It's interesting today that Craig has come out and said that he feels his job at Bathurst is to try and take the pressure off Jamie and just sort of to basically do his job and to give him the best chance possible to get the best result and go out on a winning note, and that would be interesting. I mean, at the end of Jamie Whincup's, well, it won't be his final 1,000 because he's already said that he will come back as a co-driver next year, and I suppose it would be it would be fairly obvious that if he's coming back as a co-driver next year, he's probably coming back as co-driver with Shane. So he wants to keep a good relationship.
Without going delving too deep into Bathurst, you've got the fact that a lot of anything can happen to a certain extent, and does happen when you're at Bathurst over the years. The reliability has got better from the mechanical side of things with the vehicles, but it only takes one bad accident from one car taking out another one, and there goes their chances and all the points for the day. And there has been some major mechanical failures. There's a $5 part sometimes has basically put them 5 laps down. So, I mean, anything could happen to Jamie, anything could happen to Shane, and not necessarily anyone else is in the running for the championship, but they'll double check, triple check, quadruple check the cars right up to the last minute before they go out for their sighting lap.
The problem they've got is they've got very little time. I mean, they've basically got a week off, and then they're sort of, on the Thursday afterwards, they're into it. And that's why they're going to have to be somewhat careful this weekend. I mean, like a bit of banging around and a few bent panels isn't going to, lose anybody too much sleep. But nobody would want a major crash or a major incident, especially if they're, the fact that the teams are either based in Queensland or Victoria. It's like even going back to Queensland, I mean, if Triple Eight was was in a position where they had to get stuff done at the workshop, that could be a problem getting the cars and some of the staff back from Queensland if there's still hassles there, but or getting them back into Queensland in time.
Certainly don't.
If any of the Holden competitors, the good news is if any of the Holden competitors happen to take a car out of circulation, Barry Ryan at Erebus does have a fully prepped, ready-to-go ZB Commodore that was going to be used by Messrs. Stanaway and Murphy, who unfortunately will not be able to take up their position as the 26th car on the grid. So I'm sure if you call Betty and Barry on Sunday night after this 4th of 4 Sydney Motorsport Park around event Commodore, you probably do a pretty sweet deal on leasing it for a weekend.
0400, please help. 1-3 cabs, supercar style.
For you, my friend, we make nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, geez.
And I mean,
I can see the price going up. Not sweet deal. Sorry.
And they'd have to be. It's interesting. I mean, there was some talk at some stage about them, trying to find sort of some other drivers to pop into that car if Richie and Murph couldn't actually make it. So I don't know whether they've pushed through on that. It would be a shame to lose. I mean, because that's the problem I've got with Bathurst nowadays. I mean, the field is so small compared with what it used to be. I mean, I'd love to see the Super 2s in there as well. And I know the main game absolutely hate that idea, but
quantity.
Yeah, that's what I like. Endurance racing.
It's quality over quantity.
Yeah, I would like. I think part of the quality is watching people having to deal with lots of traffic, and that's part of the discipline of racing in endurance events. Is that you're coming up in major events, you're coming up with different classes and all the rest. So to have one different class that isn't that much difference in terms of performance. Certainly the top cars.
Oh, sorry, did I start?
Don't know whether.
I remember Alan Moffat complaining bitterly about it many years ago.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of the 12-hour, there we go.
Yes, we have. Yes, we do. We have that in the morning, and there it is now. They've moved it to back to February, not early February, but sort of late February, the last weekend of February, which is a good thing to avoid the clash with Sebring. So I must admit, I was sort of I was having a look at accommodation up there when the dates was announced, and you could actually see it sort of disappearing. Literally on Travago, it was sort of going boing, 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 boing. As people were changing dates around. Yeah. So
you haven't even got my holidays yet. I think Christian and I are going again. So Brett, you're going to come along with us this time? You going Stilly?
Colin road trip.
Stuart, you're welcome to everyone. Stilly's going. I'm a yes. Christian's a yes. I think Brett. Stuart, so it sounds like a 99.
It's been a long time since I've been to Bathurst. I will have to get a roster approval for it, but we'll talk more about that off show.
We shall. Brett, are you in this year or not?
Well, I'd like to be, but I don't think the budget is going to run to it. It doesn't run. It doesn't run to Phillip Island. Actually, I was talking to the guys at Pyark today about Island Magic, and it was like, I'll try and get down. I'd love to get down and do some filming and all that, but it'll certainly be only for the one day, and it'll probably on the Sunday, and it'll probably be only me because the budget is the cupboard is very bare at the moment, both personally and for in-pit lane.
The budget might be fairly reasonable because Christian, the last time we talked about it, and the numerous times beforehand, he's trying to get me to camp at the circuit. And I'm not going to go into too much. I'm happy with the cabin again, I think.
Yeah, look, I must admit, I hated it was because the wind was terrible. It was awful. The conditions were awful when I did camp, but I must admit there were very brief moments on that couple of days when to just be able to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or something, to go to open up the flaps of the tent and look up and see that Mount Panorama sign, and to be actually at the track the whole time. It was a very very good way. If I could find a way of, if I could find a comfortable like camp bed, I would definitely camp there again because it was fabulous.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is Brett Ramsey's Hollywood moment. Out of the tent to look at the Mount Panorama sign, not the Hollywood sign.
Go back inside and get
visualizing how it would be in a movie, and there would be nudity involved, and the camera would be from the behind.
In the 70s, it would have
exactly.
Set in the
70s, there would definitely be nudity involved. There's always nudity involved. I've done. I must admit, there's been a fair bit of togging off in various films and on stage over the years in my past.
We'll just leave that one.
And even somebody who ran around behind you inside the studio that way.
Yes, so
nudie run.
So there you are. There's some interesting stuff, as Russell says. Speculation based on the premise that SVG stays. I was going to say, I understand he has a contract, but as we know with Shane, that doesn't necessarily cover.
Ask the Stone Brothers about contracts.
And ask Betty about it as well. But
still too soon. Still too
soon. Oh, on the Stone Brothers or Betty or both.
Yeah.
All of the above. Yeah, he doesn't give a flying duck about or a flying Mustang or a flying Rolls Royce about contracts.
Ask Betty about 10-year contracts.
Oh
yes. Speaking of 10 years ago, Roy's saying, 10 years ago, everyone woke up seeing 3 of each litre and a big head. And that is one of the problems, but it is one of the better things about the 12-hour is, especially if you can get into the paddock. I mean, that's the place you want to be. I mean, it's lovely up the top, but it's certainly more quiet. It's what Moto says, it's a better class of neighbour. It's a better neighbourhood down the bottom than it is up the top, where they're just a little bit. The bottom is bright and the top is Dandenong. So
for your glass of champagne, you hit the line up the top. Down the bottom, you get a really good pour.
Yeah, not a lot of champagne, but yeah, I mean, it's in both cases it's great if the weather. The point is, it's going to be obviously very hot there. Should be very hot there again. But I really do like the idea of camping there. It's just that my back won't sort of.
I like the idea of it being late February because then it's not school holidays and there will be less people that will be holidaying and less traffic on the roads.
Paul's pointing out that open the caravan door to walk out onto snow on the ground. Yeah, I mean, that's...
yeah, they've had some unusual weather up there again lately, too.
Well, unfortunately, Richard isn't with us this week because Richard was up there last week, so,
He may have stepped out onto snow himself.
Knackers, are you sure it was... Are we sure it
was
snow?
No.
How did it fall out of Jason Donovan's bag?
He only got Knackers. Are you sure? I knew there was something going to be deviant about it.
Yeah, I think that's probably less with the
we
less
know
with the
when
officials.
on in the paddock in the officials' campground back in the 90s.
Yes, and it will stay in the officials' campground back in the 90s. What happened in the official campground, but it's good. It's actually good value.
The Nadia Bartel self-raising flour.
Yeah. So if you do want to stay, I understand
the Kmart plate.
On the Kmart plate. If you do go there and you want to camp, get in very very early because it's sold out. It sold out very very quickly last time around. So if you want to get in, into the for this year, make sure you get onto the 12-hour website and put in your bookings as soon as possible.
The Bentley's coming back.
I'll just put an air mattress in the back of it.
The Bentleys have to come back, or it's not a 12-hour without the Bentleys again anymore.
The Bentleys are there won't be because the factory aren't running anymore. The factory are there, but
they got bought.
There are some local. There's a couple of local cars which raced on the weekend where Richard was. The weather was apparently terrible, but Richard, as far as I could see, I haven't heard from him yet. I was hoping to catch up with him tonight, but Richard seemed to survive and was running in the regularities.
He's still running, and so is the XL.
I think so, but they were looking at the times, terrible conditions, but they had a really big field of us, some really good cars up there, and including a couple of Bentleys on the weekend. And
he's out of wet weather tyres. He's got plenty of sticks in his stack, but he hasn't slicks in his stack, but he hasn't got any wet weathers. He's done his dash on those, has he?
Yeah, like I said, I haven't heard from him. I just noticed, from what the feedback I was getting from there, looking on various Facebook pages from various drivers, was that the conditions were, it was very very cold and very very wet, and I think Richard was probably camping there, so he might be still thawing out and drying out there. But if you're watching Richard, get in touch and let us know how you went, and if you've got any in-car footage, might be interesting to throw up next week. We'll have
now just along the bottom there on the graphic right now, Brett. I thought I might just switch the subject while it's relevant. It's Corvette Gt3 cars coming in 2024. I saw some substantiated reports today on some semi-respectful social media platforms. There's a couple of new Corvettes in not in jungle colours, but in their regular out there on the roads. Yeah, they're not in camouflage. There's actually a couple out in the roads there on the quiet driving around.
Right-hand drive or left-hand drive? Because at one stage they were meant to be doing both, and then the right-hand drive apparently disappeared. But
the right-hand drive is on the way and is being tested. Now. They're building the right-hand. They're building the right-hand drive to release in England and in Japan as well as Australia. So that is there is the factor that is definitely coming out here. That's one of the reasons that the big announcement for Corvette was the fact that they will be running they will be building a GT3 version for competition in the IMSA North American Sports Car Championship. Also, the big news for next year is that one of the cars they're currently running in IMSA, the GTE cars, is going to be going and will be running next year in the World Endurance Championship. So that's the first time we've seen a factory Corvette in the entire World Endurance Championship. I think ever. They always run Le Mans, of course, and they've run a couple of lead-up events, the Sebring 12-hour. But as far as I know, they've never done the entire season before. So that'll be the last hurrah for GTE. They're faster, the ultimate GT cars. They're faster. Well, I suppose Super GT is in a way, but GTE cars are faster than GT3. But this will be the last year of GTE, and then they'll be transferring to the GT3 formula as well. And as is pointed out, Ford have already confirmed. I mean, Dave, have you got an order in for the GT3 Mustang? Oh, he's gone now. So he's gone off to order one.
He has. He's going to say he's already he's already started playing them off against each other and going for the cheapest price. Just Pauline Hanson, please explain. You had another one down the bottom there again, a little bit further. What did it say? What's WRC? Not the 9-time championship. Great news. Oh, Sebastian Loeb in talks to return to the champ. Oh, geez, that'd be fantastic. He's a legend in his own right. Oh, that's right. The Formula One. Please explain what new evidence has come up between Verstappen and Hamilton. Because I'm glad you didn't put breaking news on it, because breaking news just gets absolutely done to death with anything. But what's
Hey, he's back and he's in colour. How is he in colour?
You're actually not breaking up anymore.
No, I switched from my fairly ancient HP laptop to my recently replaced iPhone 8. So I think we might have also lost the lag in transmission as well.
Yes, it's much better.
Yes,
much
the audio
better
quality better too.
Sorry, did I miss out on the discussion about the rumoured Ford Mustang GT3 program and the Corvette GT3 program?
Just quickly, you're getting one? You got an order in for the Mustang?
What's interesting for these two is that unlike some of the factory operations in Europe, both GM and Ford deal with very high-level technical partners on their racing programs. Obviously, Chevrolet has had a very long-term relationship with Pratt Miller, who, of course, is part of the Oshkosh Group and has very large defence projects, but has run the GT1 and then the GT2 program for... Well, actually, just try and get rid of my double chin there. For GM for the last 20+ years, I believe. If you listen to some of the podcasts that Marshall Pruitt's put out and the team at Midweek Motorsport's done, they can't really detune their GTE car into a GT3 car. It's a fundamentally different way of building cars. So they've got to design it from the ground up to be both suitable for customer teams, and particularly it's got to be suitable for amateur racers. So it's got to be built around that traction control, ABS, and sort of 550-ish horsepower, lower aerodynamic levels, and obviously no confidential tyres anymore. So fundamentally different car to build, and you've also got to make it available for sort of $500,000 or $600,000 US and not $1.5 million a piece. The Corvette program was expected. Obviously, they've had as I said, a 20+ year relationship with Le Mans, and the ACO announced that from come 2024, in both the WEC and in Le Mans, the top tier GT class will be GT3 based only. The GTE regulations will have reached the end of their tenure. So if they want to keep playing, they had to have a full homologated GT3 car. The Ford announcement, again, that hasn't been announced yet, heavily rumoured. As we know, the current Mustang was debuted as a Model Year 15 car and is expected to run through to a Model Year 22, which will be a 7 or 8 year run. The next generation Mustang, which is apparently coded S650, will be based on the same platform but be heavily revised on the outside and from a powertrain perspective. That's rumoured to debut next year as a 2023 model. So that kind of fits in nicely with their product development strategy that, we'll probably see the new generation Mustang styling on the Gen 3 platform in supercars. And then come 2024, we'll likely see a Ford GT3 car, again, produced with their technical partner Multimatic, that they partnered with to build the Ford GT, currently build the GT4 Mustang, build the DPI for Mazda, and of course we'll be building the DPI 2.0s for Audi and Porsche.
So the answer basically is yes.
I've got 3 quick questions for Stilly.
Yeah.
I got 3 quick questions for Stilly. Firstly, can you turn your microphone down to about 75% of what it currently is? Secondly,
you can.
Actually, I can't from here, but you'll have to do it yourself. But secondly, would the Mustang be anything close to this sexy? Come on, that Corvette is absolutely gorgeous. And the third question is, will the Mustangs be able to leave pit lane without crashing into the spectators?
There we go. I can see that one.
Okay. So to answer your first question, I guess I'll just have to speak a little bit softer. To answer your second question,
that's not going to happen. We know that already.
To answer your second question, I've forgotten the gentleman's name and it starts with a Z, but the original designer for the Corvette, when it was a concept car back in the 50s and 60s, it was originally envisaged as a mid-engined car. It only took them 8 generations, but they finally got there. And one of the comments from the GM racing people was that in order to keep the car competitive at Le Mans, they actually had to go mid-engined to keep the car competitive with the Ferrari. And obviously the Porsche 911 RSR is now a mid-engine car. Obviously Ford, when they were there, were running a mid-engine car with the GT. Sexy? Well, that depends whether you like front-engine rear-wheel drive GT sports cars or whether you like mid-engine super sports cars. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And to answer your third question, I don't think it'll be a problem because I'm fairly certain that the GT cars don't come with any cup holders for the coffee, for the cars and coffee, and they won't be parked up doing Instagram posts with all of their mates with their Shelbys. Although that being said, and these in the GT3 models, the traction control is almost always on.
All right, my go. Stuart, behave. Stilly, the answer to Brett's question is yes. He's probably got one in order, Brett. Number 2, Jim's Mowing said that your free pedicure tomorrow with the complimentary introductory free price is don't worry about your 3-day growth. I'll do your pedicure for free tomorrow. Just call.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move back. Let's move back onto Formula One now. We started. We were moving that, Pete. What have you heard about? Hang on a second. Let's move back to Pete. Let's move on.
I was saying earlier about team players, Valtteri Bottas. That's showing.
Yeah, well, hang on. Let's stick with one question. Let's stick with one question at a time. Pete, what do you know about the Mercedes are now appealing the decisions regarding Verstappen and Hamilton? They say that there's new evidence popping up. Do you know what that new evidence looks like?
At the time on the television, they only had two angles, one from the air and one at ground level, but front on to the cars, and it was thought that race control always has additional footage, and it was thought that they had footage of where Verstappen's steering position wasn't in the car, but in fact they admitted that they didn't use that, and Mercedes apparently has found that vision, so that's what it is. But at best, I think what should have happened is that Verstappen should have given the position to Lewis Hamilton, but it was academic anyway, because later in the race, Lewis Hamilton passed him anyway. So
this is about when they both ran off the track, and it was alleged that Verstappen gave him a sort of forced him.
He opened the steering up.
So I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any doubt.
It looks like it
that.
understeers, but it doesn't because it's got a wing on the front of it. It's deliberate.
Can I give my shall we say very early stages driving standards observer opinion on the incident?
Yep.
Well, you can run them off properly.
So let's say this wasn't happening at Sao Paulo with acres and acres of runoff. Let's say this was happening at, I don't know, Sochi or a reverse of Turn 8 at Adelaide. You know, Verstappen would have left no room for either himself or for Lewis, and they'd have both been in the fence and out of the race.
It could be argued that wouldn't happen there because he wouldn't push it to that point there because he knows the corner. So
the thing that's been beaten into the drivers, and if you remember back to Austria about a number of drivers being pinged for exceeding track limits, is that the racetrack is defined by the white lines, and although in Australia we don't include the curbs, in F1 they do include the curbs as part of the racing surface. My observation of that is that Max committed to the inside as a defensive manoeuvre, put himself on the dirty crap. When he turned in, he got a bucket load of understeer. You can actually see like the thing just doesn't want to turn because he effectively overcommits to the corner and gets through, and obviously he runs wide. Lewis obviously makes space for him to make his mistake. He runs wide and gives him all the space. They come back on. They resume racing. What should have happened, in the perfect world, is that Lewis left Max at least a car width to the apex on the way into the corner. Max should have committed to the corner in such a fashion that he could have left a car width to the white line on the exit of the corner. Now, Lewis did what he's required to do. Max didn't do what he's required to do. In fact, he then went all the way off the track, not even keeping two wheels on the curb. He went well over it. In that instance, if it was me, they've actually shown shall we say, a willingness to use the bad sportsmanship flag in Formula One, which I really approve. For me, straight away, I would have bad sportsmanship flagged both of them. Lewis for track limits and Max for not providing space to an opponent and blocking. And then that way you would have known straight away that behaviour was not appropriate and they would have played on. I would support Mercedes in applying, not so much appeal the decision not to make a decision, but what they want is clarity. They want to know that, the drivers want to know and the teams want to know that they can tell the drivers, this is as far as you can go, because the standard that you walk past is the standard you accept. If we are happy with, up to here, you can't go to there. Whereas at the moment, we don't know, is the limit here, is it there, because it changes, week to week, every incident is different, but, there is some continuity in terms of white lines being painted on the side of the track. So the teams want to know where the line is literally, and the drivers want to know is what is and is not acceptable behaviour. And I think the outcome of this will hopefully provide a little bit more clarity to both the drivers and the teams, and particularly the fans at home, and also the commentators. Crofty and Brundle want to know, was that an okay move? Was that not an okay move? We all cheer them on for having the greatest battle of all time, TM, or at least the last 10 years. But you want to know that it's being fought fairly, and they're not going to wad it up and stick it in the wall, however far away from the track the wall may be.
On a lighter note, would that be included in the Brundle clause that now exists?
No, the Brundle clause is only you're not allowed to bring minders and bodyguards onto the grid. Like if you go on the grid, you are expected to talk.
I know what it is. I'm just actually on a lighter note.
It's like any sport. I mean, what everybody wants is consistency. That's all everybody's asking for, and hopefully there will be some clarity, because I think that Toto Wolff in particular has sort of been very vocal on the fact that he feels that a lot of decisions that have been made this year he's felt have not been consistent between what some of the stuff that Max gets away with, some of the stuff that Lewis gets away with. So I'd
observe they got away with a big one at Silverstone. And still got to win a race. And Lewis took home, was it 25 or 26 points? Did he get the fastest lap that day? And Max went home with a donut and several £100,000 worth of damage to his car.
It works. It works both ways, and that's
it's all relative. And you know what?
It's
all relative, and it'll all start. And next year, it could be two different drivers, and it'll all start up again with a different situation, different corner, different driving, different.
Yes.
Every single season, something comes up and it hits a high note, and it all ends. And everyone threatens to take it to the stewards' room, and sometimes they do, and they threaten to take it to court as well too. It'll be different again next year. Maybe even the same two drivers. Who knows? But
that being said, it's your responsibility as a team to go into bat for your driver. Regardless of whether the teams think play on or not, they need to demonstrate they are behind their driver and committed. Regardless of whether they agree with the politics involved or what they think about it. So no, we'll go into bat for you, and ask for this. There is a procedure. It was interesting listening to I've been fascinated by, and I'm sure a lot of you have, the FIA radio moments when they play the communications between Michael Massey and some of the teams, and the diplomacy that Michael is showing when he's got team principals trying to tell him how to do his job. I just find amazing, and it's a credit to Michael that he's able to do this job at that level. Admittedly, he spent a number of years beside Tim Schenken, batting away, people's questions on the team email, and so he got pretty good practice for it before he went to F1. So
just another thing as well, though, too, and I think this is I do make light and have a joke about things sometimes. On a serious note, sometimes as well, though, too, however controversial it is, or whose side, or he said, or she said, or whatever it is, at the end of the day as well, though, too, if it has reached a substantial, respectable body like Michael Massey and the team, or when it goes to the FIO, or it goes in front of a forum or whatever it be, the teams and the drivers actually have to, they should, it doesn't have to, they have to skate about and yell to the hills, but they must accept the decision. Carrying on like pork chops, and, you know, I mean, it does add to the colour of the sport sometimes, but carrying on and absolutely bagging the authorities is very disrespectful, and it makes the sport bad as a whole in the end as well, too.
Yep.
Okay, listen, we're just about we're sort of running out of time. I just want to cover a couple of things quickly just before we when Pete and I were talking earlier in the week for in pit lane, as usually happens. Just as we were putting the show to bed, suddenly we got the news of Oscar Piastri becoming reserve driver at Alpine, and also Guanyu Zhou going to Alpha, is what we sort of have expected in a way. Really good news.
we're shocked.
Yeah, shocked. The surprise face has come out, but the interesting thing is, I mean, I've seen a lot of sort of comments from overseas, like with people saying, "Oh, this is outrageous. You know, Oscar should have got the Alpha drive, and that Zhou is obviously bringing in lots and lots of money, and that's the only reason he's got there." I think that long term, I think Oscar's got the better deal. I think that sort of the time he's going to have to hone his craft and to be around that team with a factory team that are committed for the foreseeable future, and with the inevitability that eventually within the next couple of years Fernando Alonso is going to step aside. I think long term Oscar is in a really, really good position right now.
Absolutely, Brett. And look, much can be said as well, though, too. I did see, like you said, you derived some of the news from overseas. That it was outrage as well, though, too. Or why it wasn't just Oscar? Why didn't this driver who deserves a seat, and this driver, he deserves a seat, and he's got more talent in his little finger than this bloody Zhou, rather than the dollars, like Stilly just said.
Well,
so I mean,
they can say all of that, but Zhou might be talented and what have you. But
Zhou is talented.
His backers are going to find out how quickly the money dries up in Formula One and how much they burn through.
Yeah, he's got no shortage of money. I mean, there will be there's a lot of Chinese money going into that. But Zhou is a very talented driver. I mean, he's the only person who can really beat. I think technically, if somebody else can win it, but the only person who can beat Oscar for the Formula 2 title is Zhou. They've had great races all year. He's a very talented, very capable driver. There's yes, he's bringing a lot of money, but it's not a situation. It's not really like a Mazepan thing where it's like you say, well, he's really not up to Formula One standards. He probably is up to Formula One standards. I think he'll do very well, and also from a marketing point of view, Formula One will be absolutely delighted to see a Chinese driver in the competition, because if he does reasonably well, that's a really huge market.
That's the other thing. It's also an investment for the team and the sport long term, because as we know, we're not going back to China in 2022, but think about the size of the crowd at Austin and Mexico City after we spent 2 years away from those events, and the sport came back, and it had Sergio in a top level team, and there was all the excitement in Mexico. We had big penetration from the Drive to Survive Netflix series before we went back to Austin, 2 seasons worth before we got back to Austin. Just imagine what a fully packed Shanghai International Circuit is going to look like when, is it 1.4 billion, citizens of the PRC. It's like 0.1% of them to turn up, or 0.01%. Someone do the maths of the numbers to get 150,000, screaming Chinese fans to Shanghai. That is what the sport will need to refire after missing the last, 2020 and 2021, and obviously 2022. So it'll be 4 years, 2019 to 2023. by the time we go back to Shanghai.
Just a bit of words
Absolutely.
of wisdom for Mr. Zhao. Choose your words very carefully in public and when you're also being recorded on camera or the wireless.
Hanging out with your friends on Instagram and TikTok in a taxi.
No. I'm actually going to take it further. Ask a Peng Shuai, who is a tennis player who has been MIA for allegations in 2 weeks ago. So not only will the money dry up very quickly, you'll go missing very quickly as well too.
Yes, but certainly it'll be a very important, very high profile sports person for the PRC. It's the first time they'll have had an athlete at this level in motorsport, which is traditionally a very Western, capitalist exercise. So there is a significant amount of national pride and cultural face involved in the exercise. So I would observe that Guanyu Zhou will have probably significant conversations with representatives of the PRC government as to what their expectations of their high-level athletes were. If we consider the loss of face and the, shall we say, some of the outrage over the alleged and or otherwise doping allegations for some of their high-level athletes at an Olympic level, they will not want a repeat of that, particularly as tensions between China and some of the other Western nations rise.
I'll go a little further. They weren't allegations. They were proven. They got done for dope. They were drugging. They got done. That's why they were disqualified for many, many moons.
The other thing is that, of course, we've got to remember that, China, of course, has its own, growing international car market at the moment. And, we know that Alfa Romeo, people were looking, obviously Andretti was looking towards buying it. If they're looking at some stage to, if Alfa Romeo decides to move aside, I mean, sort of, if it sort of takes off, then you'd have to think that some of the Chinese companies that are involved in building cars at the moment might be interested in getting their brand name on an engine.
Consider that Alfa Romeo is part of the Stellantis group, which of course is the bringing together of the Peugeot Citroën or PSA. There we go. So you've got Peugeot, Citroën, DS.
You've basically got all the brands
Opel
that started with
and
engineers who like to go racing.
Yes, come together with what used to be known as Fiat Chrysler. So Fiat, Lancia, Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, SRT. So there's a huge plethora of brands under that umbrella. And one of the other recent developments in the Chinese automotive market is that obviously the last 20 to 30 years, any foreign automakers that have been in China have only been permitted to be there in partnership with a local partner, which more often than not had fairly substantial PRC government ownership or investment. That requirement was lifted, I believe, in the last 18 months to 2 years. So you're starting to see a lot of the joint partnerships.
What's he's got?
TBA. He will finish that off.
Hello, the battery on the iPhone has died, and he's on a very strange angle at the moment.
Very good.
Okay,
we'll just make him feel welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move it up, guys. We're well over the hour now. Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up there. Now, I'll just let everybody know. This is important. The plan at this stage is obviously tonight was the last edition of In Pit Lane on Channel 31 for this season. As I said tonight, fingers crossed. We've put in an application with RMIT University through RMITV to be able to get hold of the studio for 2 seasons next year. That will be dependent on whether the studio will be made available to RMITV again. Obviously, an awful lot has changed over the past couple of years in terms of the backing and the finances in it at university. So we really need to find out whether we've got that opportunity to get back into the into the studio. The situation is, over this summer period, we're going to continue at least until the end of the Formula One season with Full Course Yellow at the earlier time at 9 o'clock, because we're not coming on after in pit lane, so we're going to come on at the earlier time of 9 o'clock. That's for at least the next few weeks until the Formula One season finishes. And as Stuart sort of mentioned and hinted at before, over the next few months, we are hoping to get out to various race tracks to do various things. Some live, some recorded. I'm certainly planning to be at Island Magic with at least one camera. We were hoping to do a live stream from down there, but there you go. So Dave's going to be there with his iPhone. So anyway, we will. That's the situation at the moment. As I said tonight, thank you to everybody who's helped over the last couple of years in terms of getting the show together. It has been a really difficult couple of years for all of us. And
I'll chip in as usual. Thank you to Brett. If this just quickly, 10 seconds. This all wouldn't happen if it's Brett. Brett's also, and thank you, Stuart, as well too. Right above me there, that technological guru above me has provided some innovative ways in the last. Keep your clothes on, please, Stuart. Don't take your t-shirt off again. He's come up with some great innovative and inspirational ways that we can going to take in pit lane forward. And it's good to see Brett get excited about it again. He's like a kid.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I'm only doing it because it's a condition of my parole. So I'm
just putting some mayo on it. So on the schnitzel.
Stuart,
but anyway,
it's work for we're doing it. Yeah, it's work for the dole for us. I mean, it's part of our compulsory.
Hang on, while Doc is speaking, I'm going to put a comment up, and I just want Doc's opinion only.
Okay, I'll get that.
I think Jeff's in the right. What do you reckon, Doc?
What do you guys think of Channel 10 scrapping MotoGP free-to-air? I'm cheesed up, and I know me. I haven't heard that news yet. I really hope that's just a rumour and it's non-existent, because I think they still have a contract for a couple of years. So I'll look into that one. However, the dedication of Mr. Brett Ramsey up the top up there in the corner there in the last 2 years, we've all had our speed humps and all had our troubles in life and etc. like that. But Brett he is the head of the matriarch of the family. He holds us all together.
The matriarch.
The godfather of this family of in-pit lane. And if we give him ideas and give him inspiration, but if it was Brett's the head of the family, it's like the mafia. So.
Can we wrap this up? I've got the parole.
When we did the last show a couple of years ago, I did a lot better thanking. I'm not prepared for it tonight, so I haven't been mentally thinking about it. But yes, Brett puts it all together. He is the great man. Brett's the one that's had to run it all from home at the time and run it and do everything remotely from New York and bloody the Cayman Islands and all those other places to put these shows together. And sometimes we've all wanted to help him, but we can't, because it's just, unfortunately, we weren't allowed to go within 5Ks of our own home. So thanks, Brett. Thank you. Congratulations. Looking forward to another year. I know you're semi-excited to be able to do it again. And now things in the world are getting a little bit back to normality. It would be great to get out with you again and do some of the stuff and just watch some racing again.
What I'm looking forward to right now is having something to eat. So thank you once again, guys. Thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Tony P. Yes, Stuart's already replied to you in that with the Raspberry Ninja. We're playing around with that. So yes, it's looking interesting. Okay, that's some technical, some TV technical stuff. Okay, we're going to see you next week. So from all of us here at In Pit Lane, Full Course Yellow, RMI TV, RMIT University, the People's Republic of China, and just about everybody else. Thank you for watching, and remember,
Saudi Arabians.
Never forget the Saudi Arabians, and also remember, save the Texas Prairie Chicken. Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Have a great week.
Bucket.